This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 105, where we are here with our spoiler-filled review of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to episode 105 of Defenders TV Podcast, where we are spoiling Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 with a spoilery discussion of all things webby and slingy and lycra-y. Yeah, I'm one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of your hosts, Derek. Yeah, delighted to be back for this one.
And rounding out the group, I'm, or the trio, if you will, I am the web slinger, also known as Chris.
Yes. Again, we're back with our Summer of Spider-Man, talking about Sam Raimi's 2004 movie, Spider-Man 2, only 2 years after the first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, the first one made such an impact.
Yep. I think this film actually was done in less than 2 years, and I think it was like a couple of days, but it was literally from end of release of the first film to when they started this project to when they launched it, it was less than 2 years,
wow,
just over.
Which is phenomenal considering how big the CGI is in this movie. It's quite phenomenal that they did this in such a short period of time.
Yes, those nuclear fusion balls are something to behold. If you want to follow and subscribe to us, please head on over to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or you can go to any other good podcast catcher. Just search Defenders TV Podcast and subscribe there. We are looking at Spider-Man 2, and we will be rattling through, in fact, 5 points of the second movie, all about Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie was again directed by Sam Raimi, who directed the Evil Dead series and Drag Me to Hell, some fantastic horror movies. I did mention them last time. If you still haven't watched them, get out and watch them, will you? Or stay in and watch them. One or the other. Really good. But this time, he was not joined by the writer of Spider-Man, the original 2002 movie. He got a whole raft of writers on this project. We got Alfred Goff and Miles Miller, who together developed the television series Smallville. And they've done loads of other TV together. They tend to work together a lot. They were also joined by Michael Chabon, who wrote John Carter, one of your favourite Disney movies, John.
I wouldn't say my favourite, but I think it got a bad rap in the press.
True.
And I did enjoy it, yeah.
And one other writer on this project was Alvin Sargent, who has joined them and wrote the screenplay for this. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for this movie?
Sure. When a failed nuclear fusion experiment results in an explosion that kills his wife, Dr. Otto Octavius, played by Alfred Molina, is transformed into Dr. Octopus, a cyborg with deadly metal tentacles. Complicating matters are his best friend, James Franco's hatred for Spider-Man and his true love's, Kirsten Dunst's, sudden engagement to another man from space. Doc Ock, obsessed with his work and will do anything to continue his experiment, and goes after Spider-Man for Osborn in exchange for a key component for his work. Meanwhile, Spidey's alter ego, Peter Parker, faces fading powers and self-doubt just at the time when the city of New York needs him more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a much more expansive movie this time. I think there's a lot more characters in here and a lot more going on. But yeah, we're going to probably look at it in our top 5 points way. Last time we talked about the origin of Peter Parker. There's quite a big, the origin of Spider-Man. Peter Parker, I don't think they went into his origin. But this time it's really about the development of Peter Parker's character. Quite some big changes here as he gets into adulthood.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Peter loses his powers, or should we say Spider-Man does, starts to become a good old normal nerd like you and me. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, obviously, I suppose it's almost, he has self-doubt, and that means that he loses his ability. Now, I don't know much about the canon in that sense, but has this happened in the comic books? Is there that moment where the powers suddenly fail him and that, he just loses them, or it's down to his self-confidence that he loses them? I've never really experienced this before in the comics that I've read. That's not to say it's not out there, but Chris, as the Guru.
So This is comprised, the whole script of this was built on a number of comics. The most prevalent one is called the Spider-Man No More series, which is this is where Peter stops being Spider-Man. Not because he loses his powers, but because of more the duality of having to have two different identities. And he basically, I think it was like issue 50 of The Amazing Spider-Man. And that scene where, even in this, they actually recreated the cover of that comic book. So the scene where Peter throws his suit into the garbage and you see him walk down the alley, that is the scene, that is the cover of one of that comic books, of the issue 50. The losing of powers has happened many times and across many different, both the comics, the animated series, you name it, it's happened. The psychological aspect of it, I don't remember, and I think hopefully one of our listeners may be able to come back and tell us if this has happened before. I'll need to do a bit of fact checking myself, but I don't think it has. I think it's when he loses powers, it's more about an evolution or a change to his power set, or someone has shot him up with something that blocks his powers.
Yeah, or stolen them or something. Yeah, it feels much more like a Raimi idea here. This concept of him losing his powers because he's losing his confidence in himself. He's Spider-Man is reasonably confident in the comic books, so generally. But I like this kind of setup to Peter experiencing this idea of going back to being just a normal kid who doesn't have the powers anymore.
Yeah, and I think. Yeah, see, like, it's even, you notice it, it starts from the very beginning of this film. The witty banter during battle that Spider-Man is known for. Like, it's iconic, and I think that's one of the things a lot of people will love, is like, as soon as he puts on a mask, he's able to be this charming, witty, this person, but he's actually doing it as a mask to block his fear.
Yeah.
And as he's, like, not many people notice, but if you rewatch this film again, there's less and less witty banter as the fear more creeps into him as a character.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the nerdy Spider-Man, or the nerdy Peter Parker, less the teenager, because we're assuming he's like in his early to late 20s now. Well, even though he's probably about 30.
Early 20s, I would say. He's not that far. Not that much has happened between the last movie and this one. It's very close set in time, I think, to the first film. But I do think your witty banter would be taken away if you're flying through the air 40 stories into the sky in New York, and then you can't fire a web to take you to the next building, which happens once or twice to poor little Peter in this movie. There's a couple of very bad moments for poor Peter as he loses his power, but all brilliantly shot. There's some great funny moments as well with that.
Yeah, and they actually built a specific camera for this film. Well, it was actually built for the first one to get those kind of the dropping camera shots.
Yeah,
like they were only used, I think it was in the very last. It was only used in the very last scenes of Spider-Man 1, but they used it quite a lot in this. And I suppose when you invent a camera to get a particular shot, you're going to use it quite a lot. So he's like, oh no, he's lost his power again. Oh, he's falling. Oh no, he lost his power again. It's falling. Well, that just made it worth it. Okay, now we paid for the camera itself.
Absolutely.
I was thinking that, there must have been a lot of car insurance claims from this, because he falls onto so many car hoods and the tops. It looked really painful as well. I mean, even as Spider-Man, I'm there going, how did he survive that fall? By the grace of God.
I think my favourite one of these is when he's swinging through the air for the first time after getting his powers back and goes, I'm back, and then hits the car and it's, oh, my back. As he walks away. Yeah, it does look really painful, really well sold by Tobey Maguire in these moments where he hurts himself pretty badly. Yeah, really cool. But yeah, obviously this time we're in our second film. We have a brand new villain in this one. So our second point really is the villain of the piece. We have Dr. Otto Octavius, another one of the fantastic rogues gallery for Spider-Man. He does, in the Marvel Universe, he really does have most of the big villains in the Marvel Universe seem to either come from the past of Spider-Man or have fought against Spider-Man. So we had Green Goblin last time, a really big character, and now Doc Ock. I love this storyline. I love this creation of the character. I love that he starts out with his wife being killed, and that's what kind of propels him into madness, along with him being controlled by the
nanobots.
arms. Yeah.
And unfortunately, his failsafe was a little too flimsy and a little too exposed.
Yes. It's just this tiny thing in glass on the back of my neck that's making sure that these things can't take over my mind. Oh, it got smashed, did it? Oh, well, there goes my failsafe.
Yeah. So I'm not going to build a failsafe for a failsafe, or house it in non-shattering kind of like carbonite.
What, like the stuff that his arms are made out of?
Yeah, almost like that. Like something that could like make sure it never fails. No. I like putting it in glass. I like to live dangerously.
Absolutely. But there are two big scenes that form the creation of Doc Ock. Obviously, there's the moment of triumph turned to failure, which is where he's harnessing the power of the sun in his office. I'm a bit surprised that as a scientist he didn't realise that the sun has a huge magnetic pull to it. I thought that was a bit surprising.
And even harnessing the power of the sun in his office.
True.
Yes. It's like, we're not going to do this in a safety environment where there's nothing around us for miles. Like they did when they tested the nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
No. Let's do it in downtown Manhattan.
Yeah. Like, CERN, the CERN laboratory is underground that goes around like 3 different countries. He decided to do it in his office block.
Yeah.
He
was that confident.
But despite that, I have to say Doc Ock is one of my favourite characters. I think Alfred Molina plays him really, really well, and gives hope to those who don't have abs that they can be in a Marvel film as well, certainly. And but I love how he plays sort of the conflicted Dr. Ock here, and how just again how the arms just work. I love how they kind of help him along. All of that. He's such a great villain. I really enjoyed Alfred Molina's portrayal of him here. Absolutely. Okay, there are a few dodgy things around and about him, but I mean, he was really, really good. And I think as well, you see Sam Raimi's horror bent here much more in the second one. I mean, the moment where all the surgical staff are being taken out by the arms, and the close in of the screams and the shadows, that to me was proper classic. Little hint to Raimi's horror background, and I really like that. And in fact, I think there was a lot of those screams in this movie where the shot just panned to people in New York doing howling screams as this sort of cyborg guy with his tentacles, his mechanical tentacles, sort of is roaming the streets of New York, and I really enjoyed that.
Absolutely. We didn't really talk about a huge amount of scenes in the last episode when we talked about Spider-Man 2002. This movie, if you don't talk about the hospital scene, you haven't seen it. Like the hospital scene is probably one of the best horror movie scenes, and I love that they gave this. It almost feels like, even though there's loads of extra writers on this movie, it almost feels like they gave Sam Raimi a bit more power after having such success with Spider-Man 2002.
100%. And like even the nice nod to Evil Dead with the little chainsaw.
Yeah.
Like, and the hand reaching for it and then gets knocked out.
Yeah.
Like, it was just... And then there's actually one scene in that hospital, one part of that scene was where you saw the camera pan. It was you as if you were one of the tentacles, and it was literally, that is a direct rip of Evil Dead 1 and 2 panning around.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, and I do love this. So as an evil nemesi of from the Rogues Gallery, I love Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners may know that there was a run a couple of years ago called The Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock takes over Peter Parker's body, and it's a fantastic run, and it really was the character showing what this genius character could do if he was perceived a good man, as Peter Parker and Spider-Man are. It was fantastic. Now, that is nothing to do with this film. This film just takes the base of what kind of Doc Ock should be. I do love that scene. Again, another scene, as we kind of mentioned. As you mentioned, we didn't mention a lot in the last one, so here's another one. The scene with old JJ going, Doc Ock! Professor Squid! Oh, no. What about Doc Ock? Like, that's still just a brilliant scene.
It is fantastic.
Yeah,
that is really
fantastic.
good.
Yeah.
I think another good scene as well from this that has Doc Ock in it. I mean, on top of the train going through the streets of New York, just
Of course, yeah, and we'll definitely
so
get onto that.
good,
Yeah.
so dynamic. Absolutely loved it. I do like the fact that before it does go out of control, it just whizzes through a station without stopping. That would have been slightly odd, but I was like, why is it not stopped at that station?
Very cool, very
The
cool.
train nerd in me, unfortunately, realised it would have stopped.
Could have.
And that would have been even funnier.
I did like that, but yeah, just to come on to the supporting characters in the movie, Chris, you mentioned J. Jonah Jameson. He does get that great moment of naming Doc Ock. What I love about that scene is how it starts, where the camera pans in on the head editor of the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson, and he's going, wow, who would have thought it? A guy called Dr. Octavius gets 8 limbs. That's amazing. Who would have seen that coming? Brilliant little moment. And yes, that's Ted Raimi that comes up to him and suggests the Doc Ock name. Ted Raimi was one of the stars of the Evil Dead movies. You see him in Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV series, and obviously the brother of Sam Raimi. So he does get a bit of work out of his brother at times. So
He gets quite a lot of work out of his brother.
Yes, he does.
Although saying that,
He is great.
I think he was in Xena.
yes, he was. Yeah.
And Sam Raimi got a couple of writing and directorial gigs through for Xena for
Yes.
his brother.
Xena-
so
Xena
you keep it
starring
in the
Bruce
family.
Campbell. Yeah.
Yeah, that one too. You know, there's way too many links for this. I loved JJ in this. As a character in the comic book, in the TV show, in the comics, he is always he's a driving force for Peter and Spider-Man in terms of it forces. He's typically used as a narrative point. In other words, to get it from point A to point B, here is the catalyst. But he was used slightly better in this. Obviously, we see his JJJ Jr. In this one as well, which
That's
is always
a lot
good.
of J's. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this JJ. I was like, that's in my head. I'm like, going JJJ Junior. Yes, JJJJ Junior, or is it J? Anyway, we see his son, the famous astronaut. But I think probably the best point, and I think I'm going to steal one of Derek's points on this one, is where we see JJ wearing the suit.
Oh yes.
It's
big
just
time.
hilarious.
It's just one of those things. Like we
The
mentioned.
cigar as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did mention it last time about JJ's hatred of Spidey, the fact that he's trying to take him down a peg. But a couple of moments in this film, you do see JJ take on the idea that he does love what Spider-Man does. He wears the spider suit. He's in the office pretending to be Spider-Man, like we all would if he got access to that suit. You know, obviously. But he does have that moment looking at the suit on the wall and realizing things are getting worse for New York now that Spider-Man's gone. That he realizes that it's his fault. If he hadn't done the attack on Spider-Man, if he hadn't constantly attacked him over and over again through the press or through his paper, that Spider-Man wouldn't have given up. That's what he's saying. That's what he believes. And then Peter takes back his costume to go and wear it in the final battle, and instantly J. Jonah Jameson turns back to his good old self. That guy's a thief. Get me photographs. Yeah. So, but I like that J. Jonah Jameson did have an arc, and you did see a bit of his heart in this film as well. It's not just the comedy character; he also has a little bit of an arc as well.
I think he's just... It's that character that is required in this film, just to give that counterpoint to it being almost too saccharine, I think. And the same goes for the first one. He's just that great counterpoint to everyone who, within the films are gushing over the deeds of Spider-Man. And it's that nice little bit of cynicism that comes into it. Why is he doing this? What's he doing it for? Like, he is the epitome of cynicism, and I really like that counterpoint because ultimately Spider-Man is such heartfelt in terms of what he does and where he comes from to do what he does. it does play around with that through J.J. Jameson, and the him on the desk pretending to fire webs with a massive cigar in his mouth, really good. And then of course, as soon as Spider-Man takes the suit back, is like he's a thief. It's just I love it.
I don't think this role would have been what it is without J.K. Simmons, the actor who portrays JJ.
Absolutely.
And it's good to know that he's now joined the DC universe. Just so hopefully our fans should know that he is now joining the one and only Batman himself. He's not going to be Batman himself. He's going to be Commissioner Gordon.
That's right.
Well, I suppose unless he may be Batman at some point.
You never know.
Based on the comic books.
Yeah, so I'm really intrigued to see what he brings to the role over there. But there's loads of other supporting characters, obviously, continued on from the first movie. We have obviously got Harry Osborn, whose father was killed by Spider-Man, and he found out at the end of the first movie. Much more antagonistic relationship between him and Spider-Man in this movie. He's much more wants to take down Spider-Man, really, not realizing his best friend is behind the mask.
Until later on in the film.
Yeah.
Harry. I don't like Harry in this film. I'm putting it very bluntly. It's they overused him to a degree. Like, we understand. Now, I'm not saying like Franco is bad in this. He's not. The acting as well. Basically, I don't like the fact that what they did was they tried to force it from point B to point C, but they didn't do it quick enough.
Yes.
So it just kind of drags out a bit, going, yes, we understand he doesn't like him.
Yeah.
So that scene in the gala where he's slapping Peter, you constantly want Peter just to stop his hand and kind of get slightly angry. Mm-hmm. But he just doesn't. And it's just like, okay, we get, like, it keeps going and going until the very end scene where we see the now, one part on this, again, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but slightly, and I apologize. The psychosis that Harry gets at the end makes no sense.
Uh-huh.
So the duality and psychosis that came for Norman was from the cause of the gas.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, at the end of this film, his son is hearing voices too. And you're like,
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
and I think we were left at the end of Spider-Man 1 knowing that Harry is going to become the Green Goblin and take on the mantle of the Green Goblin. That was, even in the cinema when I saw that the first time, that's exactly what I knew was going to happen. He lived in the same house as his father, saw his father get murdered by Spider-Man. You go, well, that means he's going to put on the suit and fight Spider-Man in the next movie. That's what's going to happen. And the fact that they spread that storyline throughout the movie, and it's only right at the end that you get the feeling again that in the next film, when we come back next time, he's going to be throwing on that suit and attacking him. But yeah, the psychosis, I don't know whether that can just suddenly develop immediately, that suddenly he's hearing voices.
It was very odd. It almost felt a bit supernatural in terms of, you kind of thought immediately, it's Book of the Evil Dead, really, here. That some kind of explanation comes from that. And, it was way too drawn out. And, of course, we don't see the Green Goblin in his new form as Harry Osborn until Spider-Man 3. But we do see him see his father's kind of base of operations at the top of their mansion apartment. And, even if they just had that element where something had happened, the mirror had swung open or whatever, but the voices was just crazy.
Weird. Yeah.
So, speaking of from weird to lovable, Aunt May, her arc in this story is somewhat, I don't know, I get the way they're doing it, but then they play her off sometimes as quite a bit of a witch. The scene where Peter pours his heart out to her and tells her the truth, which is important to both of them.
Yes.
And she just gets up. It's like, you'd think it was just, okay, your nephew has just told you he's the cause of the death of your husband.
Yeah.
I get that's a tough one, but they just the scene always feels weird to me.
I know what you mean, and
Yeah.
it's also probably, it feels, to me, the reason why it feels weird is because of the length of the film. To be honest, there's so many scenes that happen after that scene with Aunt May where she's just walked out on Peter and let him go home without telling him she still loves him or anything like that. The two of these characters are so close together. That's his support. He goes away and then comes back what looks like about a week later when she's unfortunately her house has gone to foreclosure. She has to sell out or sell up and move out, and he's arrived back not being told that this is what's happening with his aunt. And then she tells him, of course I love you, I've never stopped loving you. But it feels really weird that so many scenes have gone by. She doesn't seem like that kind of person to leave Peter in the lurch for that long. But narratively in the storyline, he loses Harry as a friend, he loses Aunt May, he loses MJ, he goes to his absolute bottom, or he thinks he does, and that's why the cute cake scene with his with the neighbour's daughter, or the landlord's daughter, is a nice moment for him, because he's lost everything in his life, and there's still one person that will just reach out and kind of take him out of his depression, which is a nice moment. But it does feel like Aunt May would never leave him like that.
No, I mean,
No.
It's like she needed a moment. I would have understood that.
Absolutely.
But the scene where they effectively have that conversation that she still loves him and all that, that should have happened there. And even if it works in the story, I understand that. But if she was the third person to, teeter on the edge of sort of distancing herself from him and then immediately come back, and then we start to get the kind of, Mary Jane coming back to him and so on, and him regaining his confidence and all that, it still would have worked, because I think otherwise, and May, it was a toughie and a weirdy kind of part of the storyline. I mean, even just the nitty gritty of the foreclosure stuff. I mean, there are elements through these Spider-Man movies where you're kind of like going, and certainly with Spider-Man 3, please don't dwell on this. We get that she's in trouble financially, but this shouldn't have so much focus on it in the movie. It can be dealt with, I'm sure, by better script writers than I would ever be, to deal with it in a much more condensed way. And in the same way, her apology, it's spread out. And so next thing, they're boxing up to move her stuff out, and like it just kind of, they could have done more with Harry Osborn in that time. They could have got him putting on the Green Goblin outfit.
Yeah. It feels like the foreclosure idea is coming from that moment of realization when you get to adulthood that your parents are real people. Almost, it's that moment where Peter realizes that she's going through really tough times and there's absolutely nothing he can do for her. He's also going through really tough times. He's working on a pizza delivery boy's salary, and the occasional couple of bucks thrown at him by J. Jonah Jameson for some photographs. He can't do anything about this. And I kind of love the hope that comes from Aunt May, where she goes, it's just a house. All my memories are still intact. Everything I remember from living in there, you're still around. I'll move out and I'll move into an apartment that's cheaper for me to keep me going. Yeah. It's kind of a serious storyline that's in there. But there is so much other stuff going on that it does feel a little lost in this film.
Is she still in her house in Spider-Man 3, or is she now in her new apartment?
I know Peter pulls up on a motorbike to her apartment in Spider-Man 3. Okay. So she does move out. That does happen. But yeah, I do think it's a really serious storyline. And again, if you started to pair this back to the core characters and what was going on with them, that's a really nice storyline. But there's just so much else going on that it gets a little bit lost.
Definitely.
Okay, well, look, we've talked about one love of his life. Let's talk about the next, which is obviously MJ. So this is good. So at the end of episode 1, my God, we're so used to doing TV. Everything's in episodes. No, at the end of the first film, after the kiss and Peter walks off, she lightly touches her lips, and the realization, oh my God, is Peter Spider-Man? I have no idea. Anyway, that has happened, and she still knows that she wants to be with Peter. Mm-hmm. But then we see that Peter has become non-committal to a degree. Yeah. In other words, that he's just kind of constantly missing things. And because he won't come to her play, and he's missed it a couple of times. She goes and falls into the arms of an astronaut, as you do.
As you do, absolutely. Yeah, he really can't manage balancing the life of Spider-Man with the life of Peter Parker. That's where it's coming from. He's trying his best. You can definitely see that, but he can't not go after crime. And when you live in a city like New York, where there's crimes happening all the time, kind of get pulled out of things occasionally. Although it does come and find him in this time. Like, how unlucky could you possibly be to be on your way 5 minutes early for the play where your girlfriend is, and then you get attacked by some guys on the street, knocked off your bike, and you're the only person that can stop them from
of course,
from killing other people. So yeah.
Oh, fun fact: that flip scene was actually Tobey Maguire, not a stuntman.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, that's
scene.
great.
Yeah, I know. I still love that scene. Right. But yes, so let's keep on MJ, because otherwise I'm going to get constantly kind of pulled off track. Uh-huh. But so this arc I did like.
Okay.
I like all the way up to even the cheesy scene where they're sitting together in the massive web at the end.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, like that.
It was so good. And then we have the trope of that she's running away in the wedding dress as she runs out of the church and comes to his apartment, but that's still even good because the best ways it crystallizes with this is go get him, Tiger. Like, that for me is like, he has her approval, and that line alone, I've been waiting for that for 2 films.
That's true. That's just true.
And
that
it
was
was
a real
just like
Mary Jane moment.
Yeah.
And it's just great that like, he needs her, he needs this, he needs that support in this, not this film, but across the comic books and everything.
Yeah.
So just getting that was fantastic, and getting to that. Okay, it took a bit of time, but yeah, we got there.
Yeah. I think for me, I mentioned in our review of the first movie that taking him out of high school was the wrong impulse. It was probably done more so because Tobey Maguire's age and because the rest of the main cast's age was to take him out of high school. This feels like a high school story. I could really see her being in the school play and him not making it to the school play, so she goes out with somebody else to make him jealous in school. When you live in a city like New York and you're going to a play on Broadway and you're going out with an astronaut to make your boyfriend jealous, and then get engaged to him and go to a wedding, these seem like too big. I don't know. It feels like this should be a much smaller, more compact story, and you could tell exactly the same arc of the character within a high school setting. It didn't feel like it felt like they would never meet each other again once they broke up.
Yes.
There's no reason for them to be hanging around each other or seeing each other at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of strange thing where actually you're looking at the movie going, will you both just grow up? In the sense that because they've been moved out of high school, and it seems like the emotions that they're still running with are still ones that you would expect to take place in high school.
Yeah.
Yet they're being portrayed as having their own apartment, about to go into marriage, and all of that. And I think, it felt slightly unreal, the whole thing. Having said that, I do completely agree with you, Chris, that the outcome of that, which is them realizing they should be together and that they want to be together, I think is really good. But I think leading up to that, some of it just felt a bit strange in the context of how they had developed the franchise in that sense.
Almost like it was forced.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like there were 4 writers on the project, yeah.
Almost. But no, actually, so even the JJ Jr. Was forced by the studio because they wanted potentially have access to Man-Wolf in the future if they were to spin this off.
Is that who he becomes?
Yes.
Man-Wolf, okay.
Man-Wolf.
Interesting. I always knew there was a connection with the character of Jonah Jameson Jr. I thought he was the one that brought back the symbiote, Venom symbiote from space.
That is the other thing, correct. Right? Yes, yeah. So that is it. So again, they brought him in for... There was always a discussion of whether and when Venom, because of his rise in popularity in the comic books, when he would come into it. So they wanted to introduce him now as a character, so that when they start showing him in space, then in the next one, they would be able to have him there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also they needed someone else to do an upside down kiss on a couch, just because Tobey Maguire would not be there.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, that is a bit of a creepy moment where she's trying to see if she could have a relationship with somebody else who's able to kiss her upside down.
Yeah, slightly weird. So let's move on.
And is this the one where Kirsten Dunst looks constantly stoned in the movie? To be honest, I think I would completely agree with her, given everything that's happened to her and the trauma that she's been through. I think probably some medical marijuana might be of use, but she looks really drunk.
She does. There was a lot of discussion on this, and everyone goes that she's happy there, did she want to be there, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But overall, the weirdest part was just her hair color slowly changing constantly through every scene, because the different levels of dye, because she is a blonde.
Yes.
As in real life, so they had to keep re-dyeing her hair to that flame orange / red. And it just constantly changed, and that was always what kind of bothered me about her scenes in this whole. Every time I watched it, even when I rewatched it, I was like, her hair's a different color again.
Yeah.
Continuity, people, continuity.
Yeah, I know, but I have to say, overall, as you say, guys, the ending between these two characters when they finally have that moment together, and she sends them off to battle villains in the city of New York. I love that moment. I think it kind of finally gives MJ, the comic book character, has her arrival. She's not just written between Gwen Stacy and someone else's image of MJ like she was in the first movie. She really does feel like Mary Jane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to move it on just to talk about the hero-villain relationship, and the best way I can kind of bring that up is the now iconic train battle scene. Where they're fighting on the train, and then the way that Peter sacrifices himself and then is lifted by the public. What do you guys do? Do you guys love this scene as much as me, or because for me this very much signifies what the two different characters are?
Yes,
one is self-sacrificing and will basically nearly. Although I never understood why he fainted. But he fainted because of the exhaustion, I'm assuming, of stopping the train, and then he's very much carried aloft by the people, and placed down.
I presume this was a take that Superman kind of moment. You know, Superman is faster than a speeding train. Was that right?
Speeding bullet.
Can stop a speeding train. That's the one. Sorry, which is what Spider-Man does here. So he takes the pressure of a full train behind him, trying to make sure that he saves the people in New York, and it's New York is behind you. So again, another thing for this character. He is New York's hero. He's not the hero of the world. He is a hero that will save things that are going on in his hometown. So always have to have New York, particularly in these films. It's kind of a love letter to New York, really. But the actual relationship between the hero and villain in the movie, I think it starts out a little bit earlier than that. Obviously, you've got Doc Ock, who loses his wife, the love of his life, and that's what pushes him over the edge. And you've got Peter that's struggling with the idea of whether Mary Jane is the woman that he wants to live with for the rest of his life. So, and he starts to lose that relationship with her, whereas he can get it back and Doc Ock can't. So there is that kind of relationship between those two characters as well, which I thought was quite a good touch in the film.
Yeah, and I suppose where I was going with the train scene is the just differences in the character, in that Doc Ock is willing to do anything to get the job done, to get what he needs to get done. So he picks up people and throws them at Peter and away from the speeding train. Whereas you then have Peter constantly trying to sacrifice himself for these people.
Yeah, no.
That's, I suppose, the very much difference in the characters, where they're both men of science. They both are, like that scene where they're having dinner with Doc Ock's wife. You see them, he goes, "Oh, Peter, I very much enjoy your company." In his very tonal English voice, which is very strange for an American doctor. But anyway.
They learn that in college, though, right? When you get your doctorate,
yes.
You learn English.
How to speak English in a very highfalutin, high society way, if you will. Oh no, we did a master's in Harvard.
But I do think it's a beautiful scene. I love that there is that moment of telling Peter don't focus on your work. Don't push yourself down the path of excluding your friends and excluding the people that you love, because you wouldn't end off with a relationship like the one I have with my wife. That's kind of the point of that scene. I thought it was a beautiful idea to have that,
absolutely,
that kind of relationship between the two of them.
And then, of course, she gets skewered by a massive piece of glass, which is such an amazing... Though I remember first seeing that and hearing the chunk sound.
Yeah.
I was like, that was something out of a comic book. Literally, it was the first time I could actually see... I've ever heard the word kathunk. And went, oh yeah, that's what that sound was.
That's how it pronounced. Yeah, really reminiscent of the first Omen film. As glass goes through the body of the priest, I think is how he gets killed in that film. So yeah, really reminiscent. Another great horror moment from Sam Raimi here. Again, another great horror director. So yeah.
One thing that we just need to kind of end on is the multiple battles, or the culmination in battles. I suppose that's kind of the final point I want to bring. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of this final battle down in the wharfs again, in the original place where the explosion happened, and then how the battle is resolved, and then also how the... Yeah, start with that. I have one problem with this, which has only now happened since I rewatched it.
Okay.
But I'll let you guys go first.
Yeah, I mean, I actually like the final battle in the sense of its interplay between Doc Ock and Spider-Man. I do like that. Unfortunately, it's kind of completely undermined by putting a nuclear fusion reactor or a mini sun into the Hudson River.
Thank you. Yes,
and that somehow being the end of it. But I kind of like the idea that whatever the immediate threat was, that Doc Ock... I liked how he turns his consciousness back on towards his mechanical arms so that they obey him. I really like that little switch at the end, because like you were saying, they're both men of science, and, kind of Peter, or Spider-Man, he goes for Doc Ock's reason. He tries to bring his reason on board to save everyone. I mean, there's... MJ is flapping in the wing, screaming. Sorry, is flapping in the wind as she's being pulled towards the mini sun. But I liked how that all kind of played out. Really, I did think it was really funny when Peter Parker is holding up a side of a building and MJ is underneath him, and they're having a conversation. I was just like, yeah, okay. I think that's just the weirdest moment where they kind of talk lovey-dovey as Peter is straining under the weight of the side of a building.
Definitely a comic book panel, you can tell that, absolutely. But it's roll out of the way, MJ. Roll out of the way.
Please. My back.
No, continue smiling definitely at me. Let us continue this moment.
I mean,
oh, wait. Oh, God.
I mean, if he had back problems falling out of the sky onto the cars, down the alleyway, then he's really just thrown out about 4 of his discs at that stage. But I did think that was a hilarious moment, and I think unfortunately the hub of that final battle for me is punctuated with just a bit of disconnect sometimes. That scene, and just the notion that a mini sun is being put into Hudson.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a shame that Doc Ock followed it down as well, that he couldn't escape. Again, we get the death of another big villain. Mm-hmm. But I think for Doc Ock... Or do we? Yeah, I mean, we don't know for sure, but, he's just fallen into a sun, I presume, that's still cooling down, but is still 8,000 million degrees C or something.
But it's okay. It's in the Hudson River. Yeah. It's okay.
It's melted through the earth and has come out somewhere north of Brisbane at this stage, I think.
But I have to say, I liked the inclusion of Mary Jane in this scene. I think because of the reason that there is this kind of connection between Doc Ock and Peter Parker, that the two of them had that conversation about their relationships earlier on in the movie.
Yeah,
I always hate having the screaming girl at the end of the movie, and as if that's her only purpose. But it felt justified more than it does in most of the Spider-Man films. Even it felt justified that he would go after Peter Parker's love. because he lost his own. And that's what it kind of feels like.
Definitely, that makes sense.
Yeah, no. So for me, this up until my rewatching, thanks guys, this has always been my favorite Spider-Man film.
Yeah,
100%. I had never, in my original couple of watchings of this, when I had it on DVD and saw it in the cinema, I never questioned putting the son into the Hudson River. It kind of only came up to me when I rewatch it now, and I'm like, really? Really? Oh, what? So you just... Yeah, no. That's... Pretty sure that's not how it works, people.
Yeah, you can freeze it for later, for when our own son dies out.
There you go.
Put it in a freezer bag and put it into a commercial freezer.
Yeah, it was just such a random way of closing it. I'm like, no, this was brilliant, and now reality is taking this away from me, this film.
No, don't let it do it, Chris. What did you think of the actual final battle between the two characters?
So I love this final battle. I really do, because of everything you guys have mentioned. Like the even the bit where he manages to change Doc Ock's. Like, they could have had the punch-out scene. They could have redone the Green Goblin scene where it's a punch, death piece. Yeah. But no, the heart and soul of this character was this, that he was able to speak on a par, on a level with Doc Ock, in that he was able to go, you don't need to be this person, you need to help me. And that bit where he does go down with the ship or the invention, I thought was always lovely. The ending with Mary Jane, as you said, having her there was fantastic, because what we've talked about, her arc, the ending, it had to get to that point. But one thing I will also say is MJ needs to start wearing bras if she's going to be hanging around Peter Parker. So both in the previous one where she's stuck in the rain, she's not wearing a bra, and in this final scene in the second one, she decides not to wear bras, and in the dress, I know it's a sundress, it's a beautiful dress, but she needs to wear it. Like, seriously, if you're going to be fighting like supervillains, I'm pretty sure you need support. Like, you don't want to get back problems. No, of course, ladies and gentlemen, I am joking, but this is just something that's always been pointed out to me, that for a kid's film, this has a surprising amount of nipples. It's almost like they wanted to go against the Batman. What was it, Batman Forever, with the bat suit with the nipples, and George Clooney. But anyway, so to wrap up my thoughts on the final battle, I really think this was a fantastic way to finish the climax, if you will, in that they brought both the violence and the emotional pieces, that storylines that were all coming. Typically, you would either try and do it through one or two different scenes, but they managed to kind of bring it all together. The Mary Jane thread, the Doc Ock violence thread, the science thread, and then the emotional journey of Peter, and no understanding that he needs to be both people.
Absolutely.
Both Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, do we have any notes on the film?
Like I mentioned last time, the cameos again stood out to me. We had Bruce Campbell this time as the excellent doorman at Mary Jane's play, blocking Peter from getting into the play. I liked that he had a little banter with him beforehand, where he's kind of saying, "Oh, you're looking well," and then still doesn't let him into the play, which is just taking that bit of power that he has, which is always a Bruce Campbell staple. Really good. And this time we have Stan Lee again, another cameo where he is saving a woman from the debris that's falling during the fight between Spidey and Doc Ock. So he has another hero moment. I like the way Sam Raimi's using Stan Lee for his cameos. It's unlike the other movies where he's kind of, a pizza delivery guy or a flower delivery guy, or just has a little quip or a one-liner. In these ones, he's an actual hero. That's quite cool.
Yeah, he did create one of the best heroes about.
Absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
One of the bits I loved was the opening sequence in this.
Yeah.
Was done by the world-renowned artist of Alex Ross, which it was a nice way. Typically, it wasn't like previously in Spider-Man, and they did all these flashbacks. It was a nice way to pay homage to one of the best artists out there who has done Spider-Man, and to recap the events of the first film.
Absolutely. He did Marvels as well, didn't he? That series.
He did.
Yeah, beautiful artwork.
Yeah, really good.
And then just the final kind of, I mentioned the other piece about the iconic scene from Spider-Man No More, which was issue 50 of The Amazing Spider-Man, being that scene where the suit's in the garbage can. But for me, I didn't notice this until I was recently looking up IMDb and just kind of like checking a few things on who the actors and actresses were. But apparently, it's quite nice. Sam Raimi, you gotta love him for this. If you look closely at Peter's apartment in some of the early shots, you can see the picture he took of Mary Jane back before he was just bitten by the radioactive spider.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that photo is actually in his apartment.
That's lovely.
And apparently Sam Raimi went on to say that this was, he purposely wanted that in there because this was the last brief moment of innocence before Spider-Man or Peter Parker's life changed forever.
Very cool. Very nice.
There we go.
Oh, and of course, there is one other note that I should add in here. When they're going through the names of what to call Doc Ock, he says Doctor Strange.
That's
and then
right.
goes, it's already taken.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, yes.
So in the Sam Raimi Spidey universe, there was a Doctor Strange as well?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a nice little touch to, obviously, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko being co-creators of these two iconic characters, although one obviously being more iconic than the other. And by that I do mean Spider-Man. I do hasten to add
Oh
that.
my god!
Well, I would always recognise that. I might be a strange fanatic, but okay, that doesn't come across very well on podcast. I might be a massive fan of Doctor Strange. But yeah, I mean, I do realise Spider-Man is a much bigger entity than Doctor Strange.
Absolutely.
But they team up well together as well, just like us three. Very cool. So then, Derek, do you defend this movie, Spider-Man 2?
I absolutely defend this. This is head and shoulders above the first film, which I did defend. The first film is has been a favourite. I really like it, but it kind of shows that there's a couple of things in movies people say you don't do. You don't make a movie this quickly after a successful film because you'll never get it right. You don't have 4 writers involved because they'll never be able to get the character right again. This movie dispenses with all that, makes a great character in Doc Ock, adds him to a great universe, has loads going on. I hope we didn't sound too negative when we were joking about some of the things that happen in the movie, because I absolutely love this film and would watch it, once a week for the rest of my life happily. I really did enjoy this film. One of the best superhero films out there, I think. John, do you defend Spider-Man 2?
Yes, I do defend this movie, Spider-Man 2. I give it 4.5 screaming surgeons out of 5.
Nice.
I really enjoyed when I watched it in the cinema. I preferred it to the first one because Doc Ock, for me, is the most iconic Spider-Man villain. I really love the relationship that him and Spidey have. And I just really thought that this was a film that got into its groove and really went with it so soon after the first Spider-Man. And I really enjoyed it. Yet there is a little issue with the fusion ball and the ending there. But I think I just love the patter of this. I think the railway, the train scene with them fighting on it, that idea that, Spider-Man is New York and New York is with Spider-Man, it is really important for that character. Having Harry moving towards his dark side and discovering Peter Parker as Spider-Man is really good as well. I think it just gets the balance really right, and to me it just works. So I absolutely do defend this movie, Spider-Man 2. So Chris, do you defend this movie?
Guys, I'm not even gonna lie, of course I do. This is my favourite Raimi film.
Right.
And I mean that not just in the Spider-Man arc. I'm a huge fan of The Evil Dead, and this film for me is near perfection. As you said, it takes so many things that should not work and makes them work. And as you, Derek, to echo you, no matter how much I slag it off, there's so much here to that I haven't even touched on that I could speak for hours on this film alone.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, because the more it's almost like an amazing masterpiece in the gallery. The more you look at it and digest it, the more you love it. But as you start to take it apart and what's the paint made of? It's not going to be the same beauty.
Nice. It's out of love. I like it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I do love this. I think the choices they made. Like, there's also one part that one of the early drafts of the scripts had Black Cat, the new Green Goblin, and Doc Ock and Spider-Man all in this.
Yeah.
So glad that they paired it back just to the two costume characters, and they focused on a story that made sense, and the duality causing an issue in Spider-Man's life.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic for me. I can slag it off in 100 ways, but only from a place of love.
Exactly.
Because that's all that's important. That's important for me. The horror film theme as well also goes down nicely because I'm such a huge horror buff. But yeah, no, I'm not going to take up any more time and just kind of continue saying I love it. I do. 100% defend this film.
So, thank you so much for listening as always. We will be back for Spider-Man 3 in our Summer of Spidey retrospective, which we will be releasing on Fridays. We are also back for Defenders, Marvel Netflix Defenders on the 18th of August. If you want to listen to all things Spider-Man and Defenders, please do join us at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or search Defenders TV Podcast on any other good podcast catcher. Subscribe, leave a review, and tune in as always. And of course, if you want to leave any kind of discussion or comment over on Facebook, please go over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/ you've guessed it, Defenders TV Podcast. Or you can leave voicemails or any other feedback. Just go to our website at defenderstvpodcast.com.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to us rant and my love letter to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. And yeah, we'll be back soon with Spider-Man 3. And then don't forget, very soon we'll have Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man is in the MCU and we're getting a whole film about him. And apparently Iron Man 2.
Hopefully better than Iron Man 2, though.
Yes, hopefully better than Whiplash.
Yeah, I've really, really been enjoying the Summer Spidey retrospective. Thanks, Chris, for putting us onto it. And yeah, we're looking forward to getting on to Spidey 3 and Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, really looking forward to those.
Absolutely. We'll speak with you soon. Bye.
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 Spider-Man does
whatever Spider can. Ding 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 ding. Look out! Here comes the
Spider-Man 2 review.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we will be back for Spider-Man 3 in our Summer of Strange
Summer of Strange Spidey retrospective.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I am obsessed.
Yeah, see, I told you. This is the outtake.